Alright, this is a little video inspired by Chad Yarborough. I almost forgot his name. He just did a list of his favorite comedians, top 10. I don't really have a top 10. I have a lot more than 10 written down here. But some of these are a lot newer than what he mentioned. He mentioned some older guys. So I thought I'd do some of my favorites, because I listen to a lot of comedians. So here goes. First on the list, these are no order either. But first is Tom Segura. I've been listening to him a lot lately. He's pretty funny. If you listen to the bit he does about the baby in the movie theater, that was probably his best one. Or talking about the Beyond Scared Straight episode that he saw. Patton Oswalt, he's been on TV, he's been an actor. His stand-up is really, really good. Just tells stories about his life and growing up, being a nerd. He has a daughter now. He hadn't come out with anything recent, but I was trying to think about one of the bits that's the funniest. But he has a lot of good ones. So all his stand-up, you check him out. Louis C.K., he credits George Carlin with being his inspiration, or his role model. He was at Carlin. He spoke at Carlin when he passed away. But if you hear him talk about the cell phones and then flying, and then being on that plane in the real bad weather, that's one of the funniest bits that he does. But him talking about his kids and stuff is hilarious. David Cross, he's kind of before I came along. He's a little older, but he was on Chad's list, and I've been listening to a lot of his lately. He's talks a lot about politics and stuff, but it might not be everybody's thing, but it's pretty funny. Just having his point of view and me being younger, it's pretty funny. Dave Chappelle's like, when his show was on TV, he just got away with stuff that you would never get away with now. And he was just genius, like the stuff he came out with. And his first episode was the black white supremacist, where he was a black man in the KKK, but he was blind, so he didn't know he was white, or he didn't know he was black. And that was just the first episode that would never fly on TV now. Never, ever. The next one is one of my favorites, Aziz Ansari. If you ever hear him talk about that show Sweet 16, and then 16 and Pregnant, comparing those two together, it's pretty funny. He did some stuff pretty recently, so. The next one is Anthony Jeselnik, and he does offensive jokes, so that might not be everybody's cup of tea. Some of them are pretty bad, but it's just, they're all jokes, and then that's why, he does what he does, because he wants to push the envelope. He wants to see how far he can go. But you gotta remember, they're just jokes. So, Stephen Wright, he's an old comedian, but just the way, just the stuff, the one-liners and the stuff he said. Um, a lot of it was way out of left field. Um, just goofy, kind of almost. But the one-liners and the delivery, the way he talked, just that low, lazy voice he had. Jim Gaffigan, he does pretty clean, and he's a newer, well, not newer, but he's one of the comedians that I listen to. Does that little voice like he's somebody in the crowd or something. It's pretty funny. Has a bunch of kids, so he talks about his kids. He's coming out with a new special Friday, I believe it is. But I listen to a lot of his stuff. A lot of it's just really, really, really funny. If you get to talk about McDonald's or that trip to Disneyland he took with his kids, that's a pretty funny bit. This one's Brian Regan. He's an older comic too. Pretty clean. Doesn't really cuss a whole lot. It'd be rare to find, to hear him cuss. And I know that's more what people like. So, but he's just, you think something's wrong with him. He might be on drugs or something. Like he's just way out there. He's goofy, and a lot of his bits are funny. So it won't take long to find something that you might like. Mitch Hedberg, he mentioned Mitch Hedberg too. He was on drugs, and you could tell. But just like Chad said, some of the stuff, the way he said it, and my favorite joke, this is not even all that funny, but my favorite joke of his was somebody said, "Do you want to see a picture of me when I was younger?" And he said, "Every picture of you is you when you were younger." So, Lewis Black is the older comedian. He talks a lot about politics too, but golly, he's out there too. He's different, and it's one of my dad's favorite comedians. But he cusses a lot, and that might not be everybody's thing. So, Bo Burnham does some stuff that might not be. It's kind of offensive if you're religious, or. But he does a lot of satire. He does some songs, and just act like sketches, acts, and his stand up. He's young. And some of his stuff, like I said, is offensive. Might be offensive to some people, but it is very clever and very funny to me. Just the stuff he comes up with. And he can play piano. He plays different instruments and stuff like that. So John Mulaney is he's all right. I put him on here because he does that bit about the Salt and Pepper Diner where he plays What's New Pussycat on the jukebox like 20 times in a row, and it's funny to hear him explain that one. Dimitri Martin, he's pretty young, fairly young. Does some stuff with the guitar and some stuff. Not all the time, but every now and then. He's clean and he's very clever too. One of my favorites. There's a lot of good sketches or not sketches, but bits from him. It wouldn't take you long to find something you probably like. I know he starts out when he said, "I'm people watching, but mostly just this one girl." He said, "I'm doing one at a time," And then Eugene Merriman. So he's a voice actor on TV. He plays Gene on Bob's Burgers, if you watch that show. But he's I don't know, some of his stuff's not really that funny, but he's just goofy, and his delivery, and he just does real world stuff, like he'll mess with people. He calls people on stage. Well, not on stage, but he'll call people and like play voicemails that he's left people, and just messes with people. Some of that's pretty funny. But a lot of these guys, they tell their own. Mike Birbiglia, I don't know if I even mentioned him. Mike Birbiglia he's one of my dad's favorites too. He's clean. He has like he sleepwalks, and he has like crazy anxiety, and stuff happens. Like he would have these weird dreams when he was younger, and he's like hurt himself sleepwalking and stuff. So for him to tell some of those stories, and he was just like an awkward kid growing up, and his parents were Catholic, and so he'd talk about some of that stuff. He's got one special called my girlfriend's boyfriend, so he gets like duped into thinking he's dating this girl, and he goes to hang out with her, and her boyfriend's there. But it's hard to pick a top 10. Patton Oswalt, I've been listening to a lot of him lately. Dave Chappelle will always be one of my favorites. Aziz Ansari, Mike Birbiglia, Anthony Jeselnik, always be some of my favorites. Bo Burnham, Demetri Martin, Louis C.K. Those are my top. I know there's a lot of older comedians that he mentioned that some of them I haven't heard. That's pretty much my list. I don't really have I listen to a lot, so I don't really have a top 10. But anyways, that was my video to him. Thank you guys for tuning in.